Today I'm making Malai Kofta. It is a favourite meal in my house. Now I need oil, probably about 2 to 3 tablespoons, just enough to cook my onions with. I will also add about a teaspoon of ghee. This is just for flavour. I don't need anything else other than to flavour that oil a little bit because I have used canola oil. It is actually quite bland. Add 3 cardamom pods. If you don't have cardamom pods, you can add half a teaspoon of ground cardamom and a tiny piece of cinnamon and a bay leaf. To that, I'll add 300 grams of very thinly sliced onions. So what you want to do is get the onions nice and soft. You don't want it to brown, you just want a soft onion. It will take a while. This will take, say, at least 10 minutes. Okay, so this is looking nice and soft, and if I forget it like this, it's gone translucent, which is what you want. I'm going to put in dried chilies, but I can hear this has got seeds in it. If you put seeds in, it's going to be quite spicy. So even though I want a little bit of spiciness, I don't want the extreme heat that goes with chilies. So I am just going to tip the seeds out and just put the actual skin in. Half a teaspoon to a teaspoon of garam masala. And stir that in. About half a teaspoon of coriander powder. And same half a teaspoon of cumin powder. You just want to stir it for a little bit. It's just going to be really quick, otherwise it'll burn. After this, I will add the ginger garlic paste. Just throw it in. You just want to fry it off very quickly. As long as you can smell the garlic and the ginger, this is ready for tomatoes. So I've got 1 whole can of crushed tomatoes, and don't throw the can out yet. What I'm going to do is put an entire can of water in later. But first the tomatoes go in. And you want to cook this tomato out just so that it doesn't have strong tomato or acidic flavour. So if you cook the tomato out, it has a nice beautiful rounded flavour. This will take a little while. So whilst this is cooking, I am going to add a half a teaspoon of salt. It may need more, it just depends on your flavour. I'll taste it at the end and re-season everything. And about a tablespoon of sugar. Now I'm using raw sugar, but you can use white sugar, it doesn't matter, just to sweeten the tomatoes a little bit. So here's my measuring device. The can that the tomatoes came out of, I've washed the inside of it, which is why it looks red, and it is getting exactly 1 can of water in it. Give it a stir. Even though onions will thicken the sauce, what I'd like to do is add 5 cashew nuts. Now normally you'd grind up the cashew nut, but because I'm going to blend the whole sauce, there's no point in doing that, so I'm just going to add that to the sauce. It's come up to a boil. I'm going to cover it and let it simmer for about 20 minutes or so. Sauce is like any sauce you make. Your pasta sauce is made similarly to this, just with different flavors. Tomato chutney is made just like this, but with obviously different flavors. Now my sauce is ready because the oil that I put in has floated to the top. I'm not sure if the camera will pick it up. There's a little bit here and there's a bit more here on the side. So I can tell this sauce is ready. Other than that, I can tell it's thickened up. So the next process in this is taking out the cinnamon, the bay leaf, and if you find the cardamom pods, you can take them out and then you blend it. So I'll turn this off now. So you can see cardamom pods here. You can of course leave it in there and blend it, but it would give it a much stronger cardamom flavor if you blend that in. I'd leave the chilies in. I want to blend the chili in it. Just right there. And my bay leaf. You want to leave the sauce rustic, just so that you don't take the fibre out. But if you want a smooth blended sauce, then you sieve it. I'm just tasting for flavour. I think everything else is good. It just needs a bit more salt. It had the sweetness to it, but just missing a little bit of salt. So I put another half a teaspoon in. What I am finding is the sauce is a little bit too thick. When you put the koftas in the sauce gets absorbed into the kofta and it goes really, really thick. So I'm just going to thin it out a little bit. Probably added maybe a tablespoon or 2 of water, but that's all you need. And I don't like my sauce too rich because tomato is quite rich, so I'm just going to put a tablespoon of cream in. Last thing, just like you add parsley to pasta sauce or coriander to tomato chutney, you need kasuri methi or fenugreek leaves. This is what sets the sauce apart. It's what gives it its flavor. So at the moment it tastes like Indian tomato soup, which is a good idea. But you need a little bit of that to set that flavor apart. So what I'm going to do, just going to use a level teaspoon. That was a heap teaspoon, so that's plenty. All you got to do is rub it. So like any dried spice, to get the flavor out, you have to rub it. And here we are. Your sauce is ready to go. Whilst my sauce is cooking away, I need to cook my potatoes. So I've got 700 grams of potatoes here. These are waxy potatoes, which I find work the best for this, only because wax has stickiness to it once you peel it, and that helps to glue the koftas together. To this, I'll just add a little bit of water. So I'm just adding a quarter cup of water just to get it steaming and started. You don't want to peel the potatoes. You want to microwave them whole. You can actually boil them as well, But if you're boiling it, again, don't peel it. You want to boil it with the skin on and try not to pierce it too often or too much. Otherwise, the potatoes become waterlogged and your koftas or your balls don't actually work. It'll probably take me around 8 to 10 minutes to microwave these. Okay. The potatoes have cooled enough to touch, so I'm just going to grab one. Just test to see if it's cooked. Yep, all the way through. So I've got a clean tea towel, and what you want to do is basically just peel it off the best you can. You can use the tea towel to hold your potato. You can leave the skin in if you want it, but what I find is when it comes to binding the balls and actually frying the balls, they fall apart too easily. You need a smooth textured koftas to be able to not let them fall apart whilst you're cooking them. So this next part I've learned by trial and error. What you need is smoothly mashed potatoes. Now the only way I can get this smooth is by grating it. So I use the coarse grater. Potatoes are hot, so you will see me let it go a couple of times, but you need to grate it. Don't need to push it, just need to gently grate it and it'll fall. So as you can see, once grated, it actually comes out very, very smooth when you mash it. Okay, so the ratio was 700 grams of uncooked potato, and I am now going to add ricotta cheese. Now this is fresh ricotta cheese. You can actually add paneer, or traditionally we add paneer, but that's quite expensive to buy and actually is not quite accessible here. You can make your own paneer and put it in, that should be fine, but for me it's just easier to use ricotta cheese. The only difference between ricotta cheese and paneer, there's a lot more liquid in ricotta cheese, whereas paneer is weighted down just so that there is not much liquid left in it. It's more like your halloumi cheese. What I'm going to add is 2 teaspoons of salt and a rounded spoonful of garam masala and just a little bit of chili powder, so say half a teaspoon of chili powder just for flavour. What I'm going to do is mash it all in. You can add other things to this. This tastes nice on its own as well, so you can add coriander, chopped up coriander to it. I wouldn't put grated onion only because it's got, once you grate onions you get too much liquid, but you can probably add chopped onions to this, keeping in mind that chopped onion again is adding a rough texture to this, whereas you want a smooth texture. Now before I finish kneading, I'm just going to add a tablespoon of corn flour. This is to bind it and so that it doesn't fall apart, but other than that you don't need anything else in here. What I would do is try a little bit just to see if I need any other flavors in it. No, it is perfect. If anything, I would add more chilies to it, but that's your own preference as to how you like it. What I have here is corn flour, just in a bowl. This is just to roll the koftas in so that it doesn't fall apart. So I've just got a tablespoon scoop. You can use just a tablespoon measure just to create equal balls. So roll. into a very smooth ball. You want the ball to be very smooth on the outside. Just gently coat it in corn flour. You don't need too much. Once you've floured your koftas, you can actually freeze them. So put them in a snap-lock bag and put them in the freezer, and they will be frozen perfectly well for 3 months. And whenever you decide to make koftas again, this part of the kofta is done. All you have to do is make the sauce, or if you've had extra sauce, you can actually freeze the extra sauce. My oil is hot, so I'm going to start cooking these. The other trick to these is you don't want your oil to go cold, so you don't want to put any more than 4 koftas in. My frying pan is quite small, and I don't want to go any more than 4, or what will happen is it'll start falling apart. You don't want a very hot oil where it cooks very quickly and goes very dark, but you want, say, a temperature at about 160 degrees Celsius. These are very delicate, so I wouldn't use a spoon in there. I've got a fork that I can move around with, but at this stage I'm not going to touch it, just let it form a crust. There go, beautifully brown koftas. Now while you fry the rest of these, you can keep these warm in the oven at about 100 degrees Celsius.